Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the official podcast of the best source on the internet for all the news, scouting, insight, and more on the Boston Red Sox farm system. Thank you for the download or the stream. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com. I'm coming to you from Sox Prospects Mid-Atlantic here in our nation's capital. I am joined on this lovely Monday afternoon from Massachusetts by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, what's going on, my man?
Hey, Chris. How are we doing on this brisk fall afternoon, Columbus Day weekend?
Hopefully not the final day of the 2016 season for the Boston Red Sox. But,
not been a great start to the playoffs.
No. Game 3 is tonight. Red Sox hoping to right the ship. And who better to be on the mound than Clay Buchholz?
It's funny to think, everything they did to address the starting rotation, and both in season and in the off season, and we're at the point where it comes down to Clay Buchholz.
Right. I one post on our forum that I really liked is that they're either going to get vintage Buchholz tonight or vintage Buchholz.
Yep, that's 100% right. Because you could tell me he throws 7 shutout innings, and I'd believe you, or you could tell me he throws 3 innings and gives up 8 runs, and I would also believe you.
Right.
But I mean, it's going to be an interesting stretch. They got three days to save the season. So
yeah, we'll see. Do they not have an off day now?
No, which is good because it could limit their bullpen usage. But the Indians' bullpen usage, because the way Francona used, I mean, we saw the value of having good relievers. Yeah. That was insane. What he did, ran out Miller and Cody Allen for 40+ pitches each.
Right.
Which is
gamble that paid off.
Yeah.
Because if you needed them the next day, that would have been tough to throw them out there for more than.
And then Price
15,
obviously struggled.
Yeah.
Cody Allen is very good. That curveball, some of those curveballs he was throwing to the Red Sox he's an absurd story because he was actually someone who they drafted him really late, 23rd round. And I saw him make his major league debut actually with Mahoning Valley in the Penn League.
His major league debut with Mahoning Valley?
Yeah. Or minor league debut.
Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry. And I remember being there and watching this guy and talking to someone, a scout, who was like, yeah, I don't understand how this guy fell to the 22nd round, and said that, I turned him in as a big leaguer already. And it was now he's closing in. It just shows, again, the value you can find late in drafts. It's not just the early round guys.
Good scouting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Good scouting can make a difference,
Yeah. I mean, you look at that's where the Red Sox have. I mean, look at that 2013 draft. They did better in the late rounds than they did early. We talked about this in the last show, I think. But
that's
good scouting.
That draft.
Yeah.
Because Swahe made his major league debut. I think that happened since we last recorded.
Yeah, that's true. Swahe and Manny Margot.
Yep. I think Swahe had his first home run too.
Probably.
Good for that kid, good for that kid, because he was someone I think we talked about a lot. Scout favorite. Like, they love the kid, and he's really worked his ass off, and obviously he's now made it to the big leagues. So that's really impressive for 11th round pick. Got under 100K or right at 100K. So.
It's funny because that draft, I think Swahe was the first to make his major league debut.
I think so, yeah.
And then after that, it's basically going to be a battle between Kyle Martin and Dubon on the Sox, and then 3 or 4 guys they've traded.
Yeah. Like
Miles Smith could make it as a reliever. Corey Luttrell.
I think he's in AAA with the Cardinals.
Yeah, Luttrell's in AAA. I think he's in the bullpen now, too.
Yeah. It's funny, though, looking at a lot of those names were draft eligible this year. Like Matt Bass was a first-round pick out of Virginia this year.
Yeah.
Ryan Bolt went pretty early to the Rays. I saw him this year with, Jordan Sheffield. I mean, Joe Gunkel actually is the other one. Yeah, because he's in AAA with the Orioles, and I know they like him a lot.
Gabe Spear is in AA.
I think he's a reliever, yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. Relievers, that could set the tone for what we're going to be talking about.
Well, next episode.
Yeah, next episode. Reliever Central.
Yeah, so for this episode, we're going to have, basically we're going to talk about Ian's trip to Fall Instructs, to the Fall Instructional League. He went, I think it was a few weeks ago now. We've obviously had some posts up on news.soxprospects.com, 3 editions of the Scouting Scratch from the Fall Instructional League, so make sure you check those out. We're not going to get into everybody that Ian talks about on those entries on the news page here today. So make sure you go check out the news page as well. And before we get into our content on Instructs and your emails, let's get a few things out of the way. Really helpful, folks, if you could subscribe and rate and review. Subscribing is the easiest way to find out when there's new episodes of the podcast. They'll download automatically. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on Google Play Music. We're on YouTube. You'll find out once we're uploading a new episode, it'll either download automatically on iTunes or Stitcher, depending on how you have your podcast set up there. And rating and reviewing helps us get into new ears. So go on there, do us a favor, throw us a rating and a review. Would really be helpful. I want to send a thank you to the Ludlow Thieves for our intro music. Go check them out wherever it is that you listen to or buy music, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, SoundCloud. I mentioned we're going to do a bunch of your emails today, so the email is podcast@soxprospects.com. We'll do a bunch of those today, but we could always use more, so send those in. You can also tweet using the hashtag AskSP. So you don't need to send it to either myself or Ian or the website Twitter account. You just use the hashtag AskSP. We'll see it. We'll read your question here on the podcast. Ian, let's jump right into the Fall Instructional League. You were down there for 4 days, all of them spent in Fort Myers because the 3 games were 2 home games and a road game across the street at the Twins complex, as well as a camp day. Yep. So I guess I'm trying to think of where to start, whether I should just start asking you about certain guys or whether we should just go with the standard sort of. Let's start here. Who was on each side of the ball, pitching and hitting, or I guess hitting and position players, fielding counts there too. Who were a couple of standouts for you down there, whether or not you'd seen them this year?
Well, I guess we'll start with pitching because I would say pitching, you're going to hear me flipping papers, so I apologize in advance. But pitching kind of dominated the trip. I think the Red Sox offense got something like 8 hits combined over the 3 days I was there. So there was not a lot of offense to go off of. But the pitching itself was pretty impressive. There were some pretty good performances. Got to see guys like Jason Groome again and some guys like that. But the guy I actually really want to talk about is Victor Diaz. And he's someone we've talked about because I saw him during the year in Greenville, and he was 95 to 100, but he had no idea where it was going. And secondary stuff was just through this like slurvy breaking ball, 79 to 82. Changeup, didn't really have any idea what he was doing with it. So it's just, it's a live arm, but bad command profile and poor secondaries. And I think you were actually the one who alerted me to this, was to take a look at his splits because he really struggled out of the gate, and that's kind of when I saw him, was like right at the tail end of that stretch just before the All-Star break. And then I don't know if you can bring up the numbers, but post-All-Star break, he was incredible. And I think he ended the season, I wrote it in the article, in something like a 20-inning scoreless streak or 21-inning scoreless streak, something along those lines. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm looking. No, you can.
I got it, actually. It was 16 and 2/3 innings. His last 16 and 2/3 innings, striking out 25, allowed 8 hits, 9 walks. Mm-hmm. And second half total was 31.2 innings, 1.42 ERA, 40 strikeouts, 13 walks. And so he seemed like something kind of ticked. And from talking with some people down in Greenville, they said he was working hard and something they saw a noticeable improvement on what he was doing. He was a lot more confident. And the stuff showed. He sat 99 miles an hour. Every fastball was 99 for his inning. And it was just funny because, like clockwork, it was like usually try to get a range, whatever, but everyone was in between 99 and 99.4 miles an hour because they were using the TrackMan. So that's all I got is 99. But the biggest improvement for me was the slider. As I mentioned, it was 79 to 82 when I saw him in the season. He was throwing at 91 to 93 this time. Hard, short, 10-4 slider, and the hitters just had no idea what to do with it. He ended up striking out the side in the inning. He got, 3, 5. He got 8 swing and misses in one inning, faced 3 hitters, 8 swing and misses. You can do your own math there. He got 2 strikeouts with the slider. It was just, short, the late bite, hitters just no idea what to do with it. And he showed way more feel than he did in the regular season. I don't know if they changed the grip or what, but obviously that's a huge velocity difference. But also just he looked a lot more comfortable with the pitch. And his delivery did overall, I mentioned in the article, you can check that out for more detailed breakdown, but his delivery did look a little better. He's still, because he's a big body, kind of a large guy, he's got some moving parts in it, but it looked a lot more calmer and repeatable than it did in the season. And then with his changeup too, it wasn't, I like the slider more, but he did throw a couple good ones. And it was 90 to 92 now. And I think it was 85, 87, I want to say, during the season. And so I think what it looks like he's done is he's just kind of just decided I'm a hard thrower. That's what I'm always going to be. And rather than try to, take something off it or, slow down the delivery to get more separation between his secondaries and fastball, he's kind of just, I'm going to throw everything hard. And if you can hit it, go ahead.
Right.
And with that attitude, the other thing is, the confidence was the most noteworthy thing. And seems like from what I've heard, he's a guy that well respected within the system. They have high hopes for him, and based on what you saw, that's a potential late inning reliever.
Yeah, the thing with Victor Diaz is it's interesting because he's he just finished his first season stateside in Greenville, which is also impressive. But he's also he's right now he's 22.
Yeah, so I don't know if he got a late start.
1994.
Do we know if he was just got suspended trying to why did he sign when he's 21? That's an interesting. I don't know the answer, but yeah, he got a late start too. So that's the other thing you got to remember is this is a guy who hasn't been playing pro ball for 6 years or anything like that. He's in his second year. So
yeah,
I think there's risk, but there's definitely upside also.
Yeah, it's it's funny too. Actually, the split. When did you go down to Greenville again? Do you remember when it was?
It was late June.
Late June. Okay.
Yeah.
You probably saw because honestly, the split that I look at is from May 29th on, so that's his final 39 innings. It's 47 strikeouts in 39 innings, 15 walks, 33 hits, only 6 runs. So it's kind of like his first 11 outings were when it was kind of at its worst. That said, there's a stretch in early July, June the 1st through the 12th of 4 outings where he kind of got hit for touched for some runs a little bit, and it starts with an outing on July 1st where
that was the one I was at.
Was it because they tried to get him to go 3 innings?
Yeah, I'm looking at my write-up. He was good for 2 innings in the 3rd inning. It fell apart.
That makes sense because if you look at his batters faced, it's all fewer than 10 hitters, and then there's that one outing, or at least going back to through May, they kept him in shorter outings, and then they tried to get him to go longer on the 1st again. And then for his next 2 or 3 outings after that, he was a little shakier, and then he kind of rights the ship again. So I think they kind of realized that he's not a guy that's going to go long.
No, he's a guy 1 inning, 2 innings max.
Yeah, there's one outing on August the 23rd where Victor Diaz went 4 innings, and there's 3 hits and 3 walks, and I would love to see how many of those were in the 3rd or 4th inning that he went.
Yeah.
So,
and I want to correct one thing I said was that I said the slider was 79 to 82. That was actually last year at Instructs. It was 86 to 88 when I saw him with Greenville this year. So it's still an increase though.
Right.
So he's still up. It's up 5-6 miles an hour on the low end. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that in case we have any fact checkers when we're in fact checking season.
It's true. How about you mentioned Jason Groome? I think we'd be remiss not to talk about him at all. What'd you see from him?
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously this time this was over at the Twins complex, and so it was on one of the backfields because there's shade actually over there, whereas the stadium the Twins play in has 0 shade, so they play the games on the backfield. And so that meant I got a pretty up close and look at him, and his frame is huge. I stood right next to him at one point, and he's listed at 6'6", 220, and I actually mentioned this in the write-up, but he's wide, broad shoulders, he doesn't look like a 17, 18-year-old. And
he's a big boy.
Yeah, it's something that he's already big, and he's going to have to watch it. It's not he's not someone like, a Kopech who he's going to be all muscled out. He's someone who's going to have to watch his size as he, progresses through the system. But at this point, it's not that big an issue, but just something worth watching. But the fastball, his velocity was down a little bit from when I saw him the first time. He topped out at 93, but he was mostly 89 to 91, 92. Versus when I saw him with Lowell early in the year, I think he was at 91, 92 mostly. Okay. And but the curveball again was the standout pitch. It was 76 to 78, 79 miles an hour, just hard, 12 to 6. He got some oohs and ahs. He threw a couple easy +1s, and it's a 70 pitch. It's one of the best curveball. It's probably the best curveball I saw all year, other than Tyler Glasnow. And Glasnow is known as having one of the best curveballs in the minors. So
he's also in the majors now.
That is true. But the noteworthy thing was he actually threw his changeup. And when I saw him with Lowell, he only threw one changeup, and you can't really judge anything off that. But he threw 81 to 83, had a little fade. He slowed his arm a little bit, and you could tell it's clearly a third pitch right now. And I think we discussed it. He didn't throw it in high school, really, because it was basically like a normal fastball to high school hitters. So when you're that good in high school, there's no need to throw it. So it's something he's going to have to work on. But with how his arm works, and I think that's a pitch that he'll be able to develop. And if he can get that changeup, even average or even a tick above average, I mean, it's a potential, number 2 starter type, maybe even a little higher. We'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So anything that changed your? I mean, you mentioned, I guess the body kind of was the biggest takeaway for you because we knew the stuff was good, but
yeah, he's thicker than I thought. But other than that, I mean, it was kind of more of the same. The changeup was good to see. I'm interested to see what they do with him next year. I think he's going to start in Greenville. I think that's almost a lock. And as an 18-year-old at Greenville, he's probably going to be one of the youngest guys in the league again. So I'm kind of interested to see how he handles that because I noticed it in his Lowell start, and he only threw 2 innings in this one, so you couldn't tell. But he did seem to tire a little bit as the game went on. Right. And so I'm interested to see how he's going to adjust to pitching, 4, 5, 6 inning stretches. Mm-hmm. We kind of saw it this year with guys like Anderson Espinosa when he was in Greenville. Sometimes he'd throw 3 perfect innings or 3 good innings, and then that 4th and 5th inning was the second time through the order to start to be a struggle. So it's going to be a good test for him next year, and he's someone definitely interested or looking forward to seeing how they're going to adjust to their first full season next year.
Mm-hmm. How about on the other side of the ball? Anybody stand out to you that you saw? I know you said you didn't really see much hitting, maybe in the field or physically.
Yeah, I think CJ Chatham was probably the guy who I liked the most. Bobby Dahlbeck was there, but he didn't really play. Got like 2 at-bats, had a couple good swings, but didn't get out of him. But Chatham played a lot, and he's someone he grows on me. Every time I've seen him, I've been more impressed. And, I came away at first, I was a little hesitant. I saw him in the midst of his terrible stretch to start the Lowell season, where I think he was like 2 for 23 or something. Saw like 5 games in there, and he couldn't square the ball up to the left side. Didn't look that good at shortstop. But every time I've seen him, he's gotten more comfortable. And down there, he was one of the more confident players. In the field, looked good. Even though he's 6'3", 6'4", he's got good range, good actions, gets down well. He's got plus arm, plenty for shortstop. Could make all the throws. And he looked pretty fluid in the field, which, you wouldn't expect for someone his size, especially when you're comparing, the other guys they have playing middle infield are all, short guys like 5'10", 5'11". He was just hanging it right in there with them, so that was good. And he did square a couple balls up to left field, which is something I still don't know about his power potential. But he was pulling the ball, and that was noteworthy because during the season, a lot of it was contact to right to center field or right field. But this time, he was pulling his hands in. He had he had 1 hard line drive to left field off a mid-90s fastball. So he was pretty impressive. And then another hitter who I'm trying to find my notes. I'm trying to think. Oh, another guy who was intriguing was Roldani Baldwin, catcher. You think he finished here with Greenville?
He bounced between Greenville and Lowell this year. Baldwin started the year in Greenville and got demoted, actually. And then he spent time with Lowell. He actually finished the season.
He finished it back in Greenville.
Back in Greenville, yeah, at the end of the year, just as they were kind of doing call-ups, basically.
Yeah, he's raw. You can see by his stats this year. Doesn't walk, strikes out a lot, but he's got some tools. He was playing catcher only, and
they only had 4 catchers in camp too, which was 5 catchers in camp. Which was interesting because they've typically had 6 or 7. I can even remember when they basically made Hiker Meneses a catcher for Instructs one year. They said as to give him more utility and more experience at different positions, but looking back, it seemed pretty clearly they just needed someone to catch guys, and they liked Meneses.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to Baldwin.
Yeah, he had a couple of throws a second pop times around like 1.89, 1.9 stretch, so above average pop times. Quick release, strong arm, which was impressive, and he looked pretty good behind the plate. A little sloppy with receiving, but again, he's someone who's jumped between third base and catcher. That's not that surprising. At the plate, he had a couple good swings. He actually had the hardest hit ball, I would say, of the trip. He just missed a home run, hitting the very top of the wall in left field, squaring up a fastball. And, yeah, it's all pull. He sells out for it. There's, the approach is very raw, but he's got some bat speed. And, when you're a catcher, the bar is not that high. So he's someone I'm intrigued by and probably going to watch a little closer next year.
Yeah, he spent more time catching than at third with Greenville this year. But it's funny, he actually, when he was with Lowell, he spent more time at third than catcher. So you wonder if it was an issue where the bat was, it's not the bat. The bat was okay. When he got demoted from Greenville to Lowell right before the Lowell season started, and he was hitting .235 in 28 games with Greenville with, not much power, .235, .275, .382. 5 walks to 28 strikeouts, so he was striking out a lot, went down to Lowell, did pretty well, and got promoted back up to the South Atlantic League. He actually, sooner than I thought. It was mid-July, and he finished out the year with Greenville, and his second go-around with Greenville, it was a little better, 260, 287, 309. Nothing to write home about, but, yeah, intriguing, but back end of a top 60 maybe.
Yeah,
for
lottery
Roldani
ticket
Baldwin.
type, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I guess maybe do you want a couple more quick hitters? A lot of it's going to be pitchers. I say if you want more detailed stuff, just go to the art. You can read the articles on the news page. But a couple other guys, both relievers, I think, in Gerson Batista and Steven Nogosek, or Nogosek, I think is how you pronounce it. Batista, the big thing was he seems to have changed his secondary stuff, or he's added. He is now throwing. It looks like a splitter. Or a split change, and it's 91 to 93 miles an hour. And when he was, which is interesting because I saw him, I'm trying to bring it up now, in Lowell to start the season. He got promoted to Greenville after a strong start. And when he was with Lowell, he threw it, it was, where is it? 82, no, that's not it, 83 miles an hour was his changeup. And now it's 91 to 93 miles an hour.
Which is, given what's his fastball velocity?
95, 97, yeah. So so it had late dive, pretty good pitch. So that was interesting. And then now his breaking ball also, he's throwing at 86, and I think it's a power curveball too. I don't think it's a slider. It's very vertical, no tilt, but it's a hard late break, and that was way more interesting than the Slurpee thing he was throwing in a regular season at 80 to 84. So that was interesting, and it seems like every year there's a couple of these guys who just in Instructs something clicks and they throw a lot harder, and their secondaries.
Batista's a guy that it seems like between spring training and Instructs every year we're talking about, right?
Well, no, it is interesting because I was tracking it. It's like his velocity increase. Because the first time I saw him was fall Instructs 2014, and he was 91, 93.
Right.
And then he slowly, like each, we see him in Instructs, then spring training, then the regular season, and it's just slowly ticking up. And he's someone I think reportedly has hit 100 miles an hour. I've not seen it. I've seen him up to 98 before, or maybe 99.
Right.
But or 98, yeah. But it's a huge arm, and I like Diaz a little more. I just think Diaz's slider is a little better, and he's got more velocity. And Batista's still built like a string bean, so that's another thing that is he doesn't have a frame that's going to add a lot of weight. He's very skinny. And so, he's someone that it's a lottery ticket, but it's a big arm. And the way bullpens are going these days, you need guys who can miss bats. So I wouldn't rule it out. And then the other, Nogosek, saw him with Lowell too. He was 93, 95, power slider, 86 to 90, change up. He's relief type, it's max effort, head whack, the whole 9 yards when it comes to delivery. But just quick arm, spin a breaking ball, and again, bullpen. He's someone I think could move pretty quickly, given I think he was a college closer.
He was at Oregon.
Yep. So he's someone I think could move pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one quick thing on Batista is it's interesting. He's actually Rule 5 eligible next year. I was just looking at his profile, presuming we have the signing date right. Actually, now I'm kind of gun shy about this, given the Basabe issue. But yeah,
Basabe.
Yeah, but yeah, he's Rule 5 eligible next year. Probably both of them start in Salem next year, you think?
Yeah.
Batista got how many innings he only got. Oh, but Batista actually got 25 innings with Greenville. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because he threw a decent number with Lowell too. Or
he only got 10 innings with Lowell.
Wow. Oh, but he was dominant. Yeah, those 10 innings
he
were
was
pretty good.
closing. 8 outings, 5 saves, ERA below 1.
Yeah,
Clearly
I think both of them
there.
in Salem. They're guys I think I would like to see them push them quickly. Yeah. And another one is I'd prefer. I think we mentioned with Diaz, nothing more than 2 innings. Like let's at some point you kind of gotta just accept the fact that guys are relievers. I feel like. And stop, don't worry about trying to piggyback them or go 3 innings with guys. Just like, 1 to 2 innings, get them in and out, have them throwing every 2-3 days, and just we'll go from there. Because that's something it seems like the Red Sox are very structured with their throwing, and you kind of know, you can figure out which day guys are throwing, even the relievers. And I just thought it's pretty interesting, like watching going back to the Greenville trip. Asheville was in town. And Asheville was throwing guys back-to-back nights. They threw the same pitcher 3 times in 4 games. Like, they didn't really seem to have any set strategy. It was kind of just like, you're throwing an inning, you're throwing an inning. All right, you threw an inning last night, you're throwing again tonight. Like, and it was just interesting seeing those 2 strategies. Like, whereas the Red Sox, it's like you throw every 3 days or 4 days, even as a reliever.
Well, when you sit on a series, it almost seems like the bullpen guys go in order.
No, they do. It's the starter today is going to be, player X, let's say, and Manuel De Jesus, or, it doesn't matter. Then we're going to get Batista for 2, and then you're going to get Brakeman for 2, and then you're going to get 1 inning of Adam Lau. And that's like, you can kind of just piece together what it's going to look like if you can look back the past 5 days.
Right. And then they have the one org guy who, if it all goes to hell, throws 4 innings at the back end of all that. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. You have the one guy saved who's the extra inning / because you'll even see it like, if a pitcher gets yanked like early in his outing, you'll see a guy go in and throw like 1 out, and that's his job, is to get to the next clean inning, because they like to start guys on clean innings.
Right, and it's funny because it came up actually on Tim Britton and Brian McPherson's podcast for the Providence Journal, which is great for those of you who have time to consume more than one podcast. I would highly recommend theirs, but of course don't at the expense of this one. But they mentioned how when guys come up from the minors, the Red Sox really don't often have guys, even in AAA, coming in with with an inning that's already guy on first and guy on second with 1 out, and the number 4 hitter coming up. They like to start guys with clean innings. They don't throw them back-to-back nights. They don't. The only thing that they do is they'll stretch the guys out to try and make them use their other pitches. Right, so you're not just coming in facing 3 batters and blowing all 3 of them away with 98 mile per hour heat that's straight, that's going to get crushed in the majors, right?
Yeah.
But you wonder if guys should really get more. Robby Scott. Okay, it's great that you can get long outings out of him when you need him in Pawtucket, right? When they need him to spot start, but that's not necessarily helping him learn how to come in and be a loogie.
No.
With guys that we're seeing the Red Sox now kind of getting away from keeping guys in the rotation as long as humanly possible. They're flipping them to the bullpen early, like Jake Cozart. I feel like 5 years ago, Jake Cozart's still starting and still still getting it handed to him.
Yep.
We've talked about Trey Ball in the Arizona Fall League is going to pitch out of the bullpen, as is Jalen Beeks. They say that they're going to bring them both into camp next year as starters again, but if something clicks in Arizona, don't you almost kind of have to just roll with it?
Well, I think Beeks especially, because Ball is still, he looks like a starter.
He's athletic.
But he's 6'6". The delivery's pretty good. Beeks is like 5'10", and it's the delivery. There's some effort in it, and I mean, he's someone we've had pegged for the bullpen in a while, and you see it. In the first inning he'll be like 93, 95, but by the third inning you're 90, 92, 93, and it's like same with guys like. Yeah, another guy like that's Kyle Martin. I saw him his last couple outings with Pawtucket, and I think there was one where he threw like 2 perfect innings and then comes out first, third inning, gives up like 4 runs. And it's like, well, why are you putting him out there for the 4th inning? Like, his stuff is already starting to tick, or 3rd inning, his stuff's already starting to tick down. Like, I don't know. So it seems like an organizational philosophy, though, and it's been going on since since I've been involved with the site. So, but there are certain guys that I would personally like to see just more, let them go out there, throw 2 innings and rip it. And I don't know if that's something, it would be interesting if we could find a way to needle out that data and see, break down like guys' first inning, second inning versus the relievers, especially. how they do in their first 2 innings versus staying out there for their third, because that'd be pretty interesting to see, especially for some of the guys we've discussed, the breakdowns in there, because I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot of the damage that gets done to some of the relievers is in those second and third innings.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see. You had one more guy you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about a starter. Someone who I think could be a starter was the youngest. I think the youngest guy in camp was Bryan Mata. He's 17. He's out of Venezuela, I want to say. Let me check that. Maybe
he spent the year with the DSL2 entry as a starter, and he was their best starter.
He's from Venezuela.
Well, so are 95% of their international signings in the last 2 years that they were allowed to sign guys.
Valid point. But yeah, he was intriguing. He was 6'3". He's listed at 6'3", 160. Looks about right. Projectable frame. Tall. It's 3/4 arm slot with a good delivery. Not a lot of effort, which I like. He did do a good job repeating it.
Not a lot of effort in the mechanics. He wasn't trying. Just to
no. Yes, correct. Yes, sorry. Yeah, because there are pitchers that do that also. But yeah, he was like 92, 93, and at with his size, I think there's more in there, especially as he matures. I mean, he's 17, and he's 160 pounds. Looks about right. He's very skinny. So he's 92, 93. And showed feel for a changeup at 82, 83. Had some late fade and drop and good arm speed, and he showed confidence in it. And and he's also threw curveballs 76, 77, and just when you're 17, 3-pitch, you're showing the beginnings of a 3-pitch mix, and you have feel for one of those secondaries. Plus, you're up to 93. That's interesting to me. He's someone that I think is going to come stateside next year, and who I'm going to be very interested to see how they look, because in the system, with a lot of guys, as we've discussed today, they're pegged as relievers. He's someone, though, that maybe you can dream on as maybe being a starter, or at least progressing into the upper minors as a starter still.
Yeah, what do you think for him next year? Lowell, probably?
I wouldn't be surprised, especially, they did that with like Darwin's and Hernandez this year. They've jumped guys over the GCL. So I think if he pitches like he did when I saw him here, that Lowell, there's a pretty good chance he starts in Lowell.
They just released the Red Sox lineup. No surprises. Andrew Benintendi in left. Batting 7th. Not that he's in left. That wasn't the...
He's a good baseball player.
He is good. All right, well, let's move on then to some emails, Ian.
Let's do it.
Our first email comes from Evan, and he's Evan from Maine. And I don't think we got to this one last time. If we did, let me know. But he says, Ben Taylor is ranked number 42 on the site. I'm curious as to why he's ranked so low. He had a great season outside of one atrocious game he had in August. He has a pretty good K to walk rate numbers, and per his profile page, he has reportedly touched 97 this year out of the bullpen. With the combination of good results and an uptick in fastball velocity, I thought he would be ranked higher by now, but with each ratings update, he either slides down or doesn't move. And then gives us a lovely ball washing after that. So thanks, Evan from Maine. Ian Taylor's a guy that you've seen both in Lowell and in Greenville. We saw him last year, and now you saw him in Portland this year. What do we think about Ben Taylor?
Yeah, I don't know where the 97 came from, to be honest. And that was, I don't know how it got in there. It's been corrected. I've seen him up to 95, but he's mostly 90, 92. And it's just, I mean, we've talked about it. The system, there's just a ton of relief guys, and he's a relief only. But it doesn't, the fastball, I mean, it's an average fastball, maybe a slightly tick above average. But there's no secondary I would grade at even average. I mean, it's a fringy slider and a fringy changeup, and it's just, the numbers are good. I think he could be just a very solid OR guy. Maybe there's a chance he gets a cup of coffee, but I don't think there's a lot of upside, and I think that's kind of what just holds him back.
Yeah, we should be clear too that when we're evaluating these guys, not that the email suggests, the email from Evan suggests that we don't do this, but you really can't just go by numbers in the minor leagues. There's ways that guys succeed that just won't translate in the majors. It's not that they're cheating or anything. It's just that, things like fastballs that are straight that will get guys out, even up through AAA, honestly. You can get guys out with the straight fastball, or a fastball that moves that you don't locate perfectly, right? You throw in strikes and you'll throw it by guys, but in the major leagues, if you're not, commanding it absolutely into a corner or on the black or something, it's going to get, come in at 97 and go out at 105, right?
Well, I think Henry Owens is a great example of this.
Right.
Because I know we took a lot of flack for, I think we've said he's no better than like a back end starter for a while now. Mm-hmm. And we took a lot of flack from some people. And we see in the majors, he can't throw strikes and the curveball doesn't work. And when you're a 2-pitch guy in the majors and your fastball is below average, like that's just not going to play. Right. And I'm not saying Taylor's like that at all, because they're totally different players, but just the idea that, Owen's stats were incredible, as we saw. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there were always, red flags that, just because something works in AA or even AAA is not necessarily means it's going to work in the majors.
Right. Our next email comes from a frequent emailer, Lendell, and he asks, with Moncada at third now, do you think the Red Sox will have Rafael Devers start playing first base sometime next season, or will they wait until he's closer to the majors? I would like to see Devers get a head start on learning it instead of waiting until the last moment like Moncada at third. That's his first question. And his next question, is there any chance Dahlbeck starts in Salem next year? Take the second question first because it's easy. Yeah, I think he does start in Salem.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'd be surprised.
I think it's more, the only way I would see him go to Greenville is if for some reason he really struggles in spring training and they want to build his confidence up. But I think it's likely he goes to Salem.
Yeah, I think he would have gotten a lot of time with Greenville this year were it not for the playoff situation, frankly.
I agree. Yeah, there's no reason to keep him in Lowell.
I mean, that's the reason why Roldani Baldwin gets called up instead of him, right? Yeah. Baldwin, you don't mind him missing out on the playoff experience. Yeah. So, I think he definitely does. As for Devers and Dahlbeck, Ian, to me, first of all, just speaking from a practical standpoint, not Rafael Devers, any minor leaguer in the system, they don't even think about moving them to a position based on major league need or on how they are blocked until AA. It's not even a consideration. And I think that's with good reason, because you're not going to move a guy off of their best position until you have to, because let's remember here, the minor league system is both A, to produce players for your team, and B, to produce players to use in trades to get things you need for the major league team. And so moving a guy off of his best position too early to a position he's weaker at, or to a position he can field fine, but that he's not necessarily, it puts more pressure on the bat or something, like moving from third to first, it diminishes the player's value. Looking specifically at Devers, we're hearing really good things, and these are things that we have joined in saying, about his defense at third base this year. It's not a situation where he's going to have to move to first because of anything to have to do with him. He's almost certainly, he can field the position. The question is just whether his body were to get too big, and it doesn't look like it's going to.
He's done a great job getting in better shape.
Great job with it. I'm interested to see, after his second healthy offseason, what he looks like in camp next year.
Yeah, it's a good point, because, we forget that he was coming into last season. He couldn't run for most of last offseason because of the broken foot. So, It's a good point.
So, to me, with Devers, I'm not moving him off of third base until he's about to get a call up to Boston. I know we talk about, Lendell mentions in the email that Moncada was moved at the last moment. To me, I think they might have waited a little too long on that, frankly. I thought he was going to start playing third a lot sooner.
I said it as soon as he was called out to Portland. I said that he should. I think I tweeted out that.
This is Christina.
Sorry. I said that he should be. That was weird. That was my cell phone just decided to start talking.
Oh God. Anyway,
I said. I think I mentioned that I would not be surprised at all if within a couple weeks he was playing third base and it took a couple months.
Yeah. So the reason for that too is it was very clear that he was an option to play third base for the Boston Red Sox.
And the other thing was, he wasn't going to play second base.
No.
Like, it wasn't like there was even a question. It's like, even if Pedroia gets hurt, he's not first in line for second base. Like, Mark Hernandez would have been the second baseman.
Right.
So it's like,
Brock Holt.
Brock Holt would have been. But this is, we might be getting a little hot takey here. I'm not convinced that Moncada is going to be a better defender at third base than Devers is.
Yeah, I don't think that's that hot of a take.
I've seen Moncada. We've seen Moncada play third base, and I think he looks better there than he did at second base. But at the same time, I'm not 100% convinced he's going to stay in the infield, and I don't know what that does for the rest of the team.
Right?
Because if he doesn't stick in the infield, it creates kind of an issue. Not an issue, but it creates.
You have to trade someone.
They're going to have to trade someone.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100%. Like, I've seen Devers improve greatly at third base. I think his arm is just as good as Moncada's. Like, it's a 65-70 arm. and he's been playing the position longer. So I wouldn't be just because Moncada might be at third base, I wouldn't assume, even if Moncada like takes that position, I wouldn't assume it would push Devers off it.
Mm-hmm. That said, too, on the flip side, Rafael Devers starting at first base for the Boston Red Sox is not something I have a problem with.
Oh, no, not at all. His battery's fine. Like,
right.
I would rather, and this is the other thing too, if it comes down to both can play, a similar defense at third base, I would rather have Moncada there because Moncada athleticism is wasted at first base or in another position versus, Devers.
You're almost wasting Devers' athleticism at first base.
You kind of are, but at the same time, like unless you're trading someone, and I don't want to like speculate on a trade, if you're trying to shoehorn everyone into a position, that's the way you do it.
Well, yeah, and then maybe down the line, and this is speculation upon speculation, but say when Pedroia finally retires or something, then maybe the move is Betts to the second base and Moncada to the outfield or something, and then Devers moves back over to third. But
that would be interesting after taking 5 years off and playing second base.
Right, yeah, exactly. But thanks for the email.
Maybe on the 2021 season preview we'll discuss that if it's still.
All right, so this is an interesting question that we got from frequent emailer Michael, and he says, so of all of the players in the Red Sox system, who is most likely to be the next Robby Scott? Which is, it's funny because when I had forwarded this to you, you took it a much different way than I did, which I think is fair based on the way it's asked. Ian, so I think the way you had taken it was who's the next loogie reliever, right?
Yeah.
And so what your answer at that point was Matt Kent?
Matt Kent, or actually I have another addition to the list after seeing Instructs.
So Matt Kent, who we talked about last episode, I believe. So we're not going to go back into that again, although we did apparently not discuss him quite as deeply as I thought we had. We had a conversation this week. But who's the other guy you got?
It's Robbie Sexton. He was, I think, a 14th round pick out of Wright State, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that.
He was 14th round pick out of Wright State. Nailed it.
Started in the Gulf Coast League and got did really well in 6 outings, 20 innings, 15 hits, 4 runs, 23 strikeouts to 1 walk.
Yeah, and
got called up to the Lowell for the playoffs, and I don't know whether he pitched or not.
I think he pitched in one of the games, but he was. I mean, he's a loogie. Like, that's what he is. I don't know how to say it another way. It's a filled out frame. He's like 6 foot, 225, kind of shorter type. And he doesn't do the Matt Kent or Robby Scott thing of varying his arm slot yet, though I won't be surprised if he eventually does. Mm-hmm. But he's like 88 to 90 with cut on his fastball, slurvy breaking, 2-plane breaking ball, and feel for a changeup. And he got a bunch of swinging strikes on his changeup. And it's just, that's the loogie profile, like to a T right there. It's someone who below average velocity, really tough on lefties. He's got some deception. Can cut his fastball. He's got the changeup that can miss bats. And, he's someone who, when you get up to Double-A, you start fiddling with the arm slot. You see what can happen. And
you want the splits?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
And this is in the Gulf Coast League, so, grain of salt for a college guy in the Gulf Coast League. But we'll do against right-handers. Faced 43 batters, gave up 12 hits, struck out 13, gave up the 1 walk. So the slash line against him was 286, 302, 429. Yeah. Against left-handers, 30 batters faced, 3 hits, no walks, only 10 strikeouts, although that's a third of the batters he faced, so maybe not only 10 strikeouts. 1 extra base hit. Slash line was 100, 100, 133.
There you go. Well, yeah, because you see it in his delivery. He does a good job. He keeps his arm behind till really late. So if you're a lefty, you're not getting a good look at it all. But versus a righty, when he's hiding it, you're getting a better look, basically.
Right.
So that fits. And yeah, he's someone who, in the Matt Kent, Robby Scott mold, you never know.
But taking this in the sense that I did of kind of guy who comes out of nowhere, you got to kind of look at who Robby Scott is, right? He's a guy who went to a JUCO for 2 years, Broward College, transferred to Florida State, barely pitched at Florida State. In 2 seasons, he threw 14 and a third innings, and I don't think he was hurt. I think he just didn't pitch much. Winds up going to indie ball in the North American Baseball League, which I don't believe exists anymore, playing for Yuma and manager Jose Canseco. His teammate was Tony Phillips, who at that point was retired from the majors, or I mean, I guess retired, or I don't know whether he just stopped playing in the majors. But anyway, yes, that Tony Phillips, the second baseman, only throws in 7 games for them, and for some reason in 11 innings, he strikes out 19, walks 4, allows 6 hits. Literally, his last game, he started, and Canseco had to go out and pull him in like the second inning because the Red Sox were signing him. Goes to the Gulf Coast League in 2011, then gets bumped up to Lowell pretty quick. The following year, spends all of 2012 with the Gulf Coast League Red Sox. 2013, goes straight to Salem, so he's never pitched in Greenville. Spends all year with Salem. He's relieving. He never started a game in the Red Sox system. This is the profile of a guy who we ignore, right? I mean, second full season at age 22, spends it in the Gulf Coast League as a reliever.
Well, I wouldn't say we ignore them. We see them. Okay. I mean, I see them. I just don't write about them. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he had great numbers in 2012 in the Gulf Coast League, and they still didn't bother promoting him.
That's the Gulf Coast League, like, whatever.
Well, but that's my point is that they still didn't bother promoting him.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm saying it's like, okay, great, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, then all of a sudden in 2014, he goes to Portland and, has a really good season. They send him out to the Arizona Fall League. And
we wrote about him that year, too, I would just like to say.
Yeah,
we have a scouting report up on him.
We do. Scouting scratch from July of 2014. And then, last year spends it split between Portland and Pawtucket, and this year in Pawtucket.
But, look, he was really terrible in Pawtucket last year.
There. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was not good.
I will say he didn't
2015. Oh, yeah, he was bad.
Last year he didn't do the arm slot thing last year.
No, he did. Because I know Nick Rabasco went out and caught him late in the year at one of the Pennsylvania road games.
I don't think he did when I saw him early in the year, maybe. I don't know.
So he might have started doing it later in the year, but he was the one who mentioned the varying of the arm slot.
Yeah, because I don't think he was when I saw him early in the year.
It's such a random profile.
But this is the thing, I think we talk about it, like loogies. There's certain positions where you don't put anything past, and it's like catchers who can catch and throw, middle infielders who can play defense, and loogies. I think those are the 3. It's like, who knows?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's like if you need with the how many of the big power hitters are lefties, and you just need guys who can get left-handers out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how, by hook or by crook.
Yeah. I mean, for a profile like that, though, I just don't even. Ugh.
Oh no! I mean, it's Daniel Nava of pitching, maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
Jordan Weems.
I mean, I don't know.
Who was an early round pick as a catcher?
I don't think there's anyone who I would say is that, because there's no the undrafted guy who is going to make the big leagues. I mean, I can't think of anyone.
I mean, it's an indie ball signing too. It's just an indie ball signing.
Aaron Wilkerson maybe was that guy, but we talked about him. And he really struggled with Milwaukee.
Austin Glorious could be
true. Yeah, I think
it's Austin Glorious.
He got better this season. But yeah, he throws hard though, and it's like
right.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of the narrative, not necessarily the on-field comp. Maybe it's Austin Glorious, but yeah, it's a weird profile. It's a great question, by the way. Thanks for that, Michael. Our next question, let's try and tear through these, is from Trevor from Vancouver, up in north of the border in Vancouver. Sorry for not taking your question earlier. He asks, how do you see the offseason / beginning of next year playing out for the third base position? It seems like Moncada will begin the year in AAA, but do you think they'll keep Shaw at third base and wait until Moncada is ready in June or July? Or do you think they'll sign a stopgap type player that might be better than Shaw? Curious to hear how you think Moncada's next season will play out. Thanks, Trevor. He said this before Brock Holt became the starting third baseman, obviously. Trevor did. So that is obviously something that factors in here. I'm inclined to agree Moncada starts next year in AAA. It looks like they're going to keep him at third base. He's going to spend all of the Arizona Fall League at third base. So that seems to be the plan for him. I don't think you can really reasonably sign someone for third base. I think the key point that Trevor is forgetting is that Pablo Sandoval, who I guess there's Instructs news there as well, Ian.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about him.
We kind of buried the lead here.
Yeah. I think we broke that.
Yeah, so Pablo Sandoval, to me, is very clearly the starting third baseman next year.
I think it's it's him, Travis Shaw, Brock Holt fight it out, and best man wins.
Yeah, and I think to me it's pretty. I think unless something really goes wrong, it's Sandoval.
I think they'd like it to be Sandoval.
Yeah, Yeah. So tell us about you saw Sandoval at Fall Instructs, Ian.
I did. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, that was a funny one because I remember. Sorry, there's a dog outside my window.
I can't hear it. It's fine.
We were like, all of a sudden, number 46 walks out in the on deck circle, and everyone's looking at their rosters like, who is that? And then you see the frame, and you're like, oh, wait a second, what's he doing here? And he was getting the Xander Bogaerts post WBC treatment, where he hit third in every inning for the first 5 innings of the games, and he actually didn't look that bad. He looked in better shape than he was.
Yeah, the photos, he looked in much better shape.
He's still big, but he's not as big. And, I mean, if you remember some of those photos that weren't very flattering. He looks to have gotten in better shape. He actually looked pretty good at the plate. He just missed a home run twice. He was taking some big league hacks up there, no doubt. Like, he was getting his swings in. But he had a couple hits. He's hitting the ball hard and looked pretty comfortable at the plate. And obviously, grain of salt again because he's facing like 18, 19-year-old pitchers most of the time. But, I mean, the Twins guys he faced had some velocity, and the Orioles guys. So, I mean, I was pretty surprised to see him. He's still obviously not a great athlete. His run times were pretty funny. I think I got a 5.93 down the line on one of them, which is not very fast.
That's a 20.
Yeah, no, that's like a negative 20.
He obviously wasn't hustling either.
No. I think he's probably going to be the starting third baseman next year. And I do think Moncada starts in Pawtucket, and I think we saw why he needs to start at Pawtucket because, we talked about it when he was called up that this isn't an Andrew Benintendi situation. Moncada is not as polished as Benintendi was. Like, there's a lot of swing and miss in his game. And I think he was striking out at like a 30% rate in Double A, and we saw in the big leagues he struck out at his last 9 at-bats before they basically demoted him or sent him home. And he's got to work on that. Like, he needs to cut down the strikeouts because he's not going to reach his potential if he can't make contact because he needs to be on base to make his speed play, and he needs to make contact to have his power play. So that's something he really needs to work on. And AAA will be a good level for him because one of the things he really struggles with is breaking balls. And we saw like that first series against Oakland. What are they doing? They're just pounding it with sliders. Down and in, down and in, down and in. Change-ups away. Just secondary. Just don't even give him a fastball. And that's something he's going to have to work on, and we'll see where it goes from there. But Pawtucket will be a good level when you've got, those organizational type arms who just can go up there and spin a breaking ball and throw in like the high 80s. That's what he's going to be facing a lot of. Yeah, so I think he needs a lot of seasoning too. I'm not talking like a month.
Right.
I think he could be there for 3, 4, even 5 months, like most of the season.
Agreed. And I think that, the other issue, obviously, where I think he still could have made the postseason roster if he hadn't had those kind of base running gaffes I think we kind of glossed over this last time. We mentioned last time, kind of my hot take on it was that they committed to him completely way too quickly, and they got away from him completely way too quickly. It was kind of surprising in both respects, but I think he kind of ran his way off the roster, forgetting how many outs there were. To me, it's pretty clear that they wanted him to be in that Marco Hernandez roster spot because he's a guy you really could have used late in a game, to steal a base, that kind of thing. So, kind of seasoning in that sense too. He'll be in AAA with, playing with and against guys who have major league experience, and a manager in Kevin Bowles who isn't gonna, is gonna stay on him in a good way. So I think that'll be good for him as well. So thanks for the question, Trevor. Our next question comes from Kyle, and Kyle asks, great work as always. Really look forward to the podcasts. My question is, are there any prospects in the low minors that you see the Red Sox being aggressive with in terms of where they start next year? Could Dalbec skip Greenville, for instance, and play in Salem? That's, as we said, what we think is going to happen. Victor Garcia to Double-A, something along those lines. Thanks, guys. He signs at Bazooka Tooth, which is his forum handle.
Victor Garcia, does he mean Victor Diaz?
I think he might have meant Victor Diaz. Victor Garcia is a guy who was pitching in the Gulf Coast League this year, and I think Alex Spear reported he was in the upper 90s, but I think Diaz might be the guy he was referring to.
Garcia wasn't even at Instructs, so
yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, that could easily be an innings thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I wouldn't read anything into it, but Yeah, no, he wasn't at Instructs.
Yeah,
Nope.
guys, they might be aggressive with Ian. What do you think? Does anybody stick out? I'm pulling up the 2017 projections on the website right now.
Let me do the same thing.
And,
I think one that jumps to mind is I think Nogasek could start in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's probably starts in Salem, but again, I wouldn't rule out Portland. I don't know how he did that in Greenville. Actually, that's actually probably something I should look at.
How he did in Greenville?
Actually, wasn't very good. He didn't walk anyone, just gave up a few hits. That's fine. I think Chatham will start in Salem, probably.
Really? Okay.
With Dahlbeck.
We have both him and Dahlbeck in Greenville on the projections of the website right now.
It's right on. I mean,
it's a 50-50 coin flip, honestly, I think, with either of them. Although, so the issue with Dahlbeck to Salem, I'd forgotten about this. You've got Chavis in Salem.
I honestly, I wouldn't. That would.
Well, but the point is, if it's close.
Yeah, if it's close, I could see that being a determining factor. There's one. Mike Schwarren to Salem. I don't think there's any chance he starts in Greenville. Mm-hmm. Especially, he's one too. If they moved him to the bullpen, I think could move very quickly. I don't think they will. But
Mike Schwarren obviously is the right-hander that they drafted in the 5th round this year out of Maryland. Spent his pro debut with Lowell. Yeah.
I don't think they will move him to the bullpen because obviously they invested over $600K in him, so they think he's a starter. But he's someone I think could move quick, and it's tough to. I don't really see anyone else. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, because part of the problem, quote problem, is that you're normally for guys that you're looking for this sort of thing, you're looking near the top of the rankings, right? And it's like Moncada and Benintendi, we know where they're going to be most likely. Devers is going to Portland. Jason Groome, I can't see them pushing him straight to Salem. I think the aggressive move with Groome would be them, giving him a promotion to Salem earlier than you might otherwise think, but I can't see them starting him in Salem. Michael Kopech's starting in Portland. Travis is already in Pawtucket. Johnson's already in Pawtucket. Luis Alexander Basabe is starting in Salem. And then you get guys that, Marco Hernandez, Pawtucket or Boston. Mauricio Dubon, probably Pawtucket.
I think the thing that what this kind of hints at though is you look at it, they just don't have a lot of the type of profile of guys you would push quickly.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of,
Well, it's Chatham and Dahlbeck and Schwarren.
Yeah. It's like the polished college guys from last year's draft are the ones we're mentioning. And other than that, it's just because they don't have obviously the international, their international system. The thing from the last 2 years has really screwed up the depth in the system with that. And the new draft signing rules have really limited them there too. And we're probably talking about it more on the rankings one, end of season rankings one, but they just don't have any position players in the system.
Right.
They do have them obviously, but you know what I mean? There's just not a lot of talent at the position players once you get past the top 15 or so prospects.
Right.
And as a result, you don't have that type of profile of guy who you would want to push aggressively or anything because, a lot of the guys that we're talking about who are, on those rosters who we project, to start next year, it's guys that didn't have a great year the year before or just don't really project as that much. And it's what's the point of pushing them? I think maybe someone who they wanted to get weirdly aggressive with could be Tyler Hill. Maybe you push him to Salem if you think the bat's legit.
Yeah, or just to see what's there.
Exactly, because I think he's already in his 4th year, or he'll be in his 4th year in the system. You don't know what you have, and he's one of the ones. I'm interested to see where other people ranked him because I don't know what to do with him because I think he can hit a little bit, but I don't think he's.
It's a left field only profile.
Yeah, well, I was going to get there, but I don't really think he can hit. I don't get it because I saw him hit so many seeing eye singles, bloop doubles. Just he doesn't square the ball up. And actually, it's funny because in Instructs he got 2 at bats and he hit the hardest ball I've seen him hit all year, but it was caught. But it was still funny to say because we were talking about he never squares anything up when I've seen him and he does it down in Instructs. But he's a below average runner and he's a left field only and he's not good at left field. And it's well, if you're left field only and you're not good at it, that means you have to be a 30 home run hitter who hits 280. And I don't think he's either of those. So it's yeah, he hit 340 this year, but what is he? And that's someone who I think they could, maybe if they have the same, they're a little trying to figure out what he is too. Maybe he's someone you push aggressively to Salem and just say, screw it, let's see what happens, especially since I think he's He'll be Rule 5 eligible in 2 years. So if he spends all next year in Greenville, I mean, he's going to be, he's way behind the curve right now. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's do one more question because my wife is on her way home from the supermarket, and I'm going to need to help her bring groceries in.
What a good husband.
Hey, I happy wife, happy life. You'll learn that when you get older, Ian. This question's from Mark, and he says the Red Sox look to be heading in the right direction with the bullpen featuring a low 80s seventh inning guy, Ziegler, handing the ball to a mid 80s guy, Uehara, before before Kimbrel. This is almost the antithesis of every other quality bullpen in the Major League in the MLB right now, and MLB, whatever. My question is, now that Light and his 100-mile-per-hour Heat have been traded in the Abad trade, what do we have on the near horizon in the way of high heat, high leverage bullpen help? Will Jake Cozart be ready? Are there any starters in high A or double A that really profile as a relief pitcher to let their fastball play up? Thanks for the question, Mark. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. As far as high velocity guys, I think you're mostly looking at like high A or lower, right? I mean,
there's one in double A.
I'm missing someone obvious. Who
am
I missing?
He's listed first on the starters projected for next year's Portland Sea Dogs team.
Michael Kopech. Hey, there you go. I like the profile there as a closer. Obviously, that's if starting doesn't work, but
I do think this is actually somewhere that the system has greatly improved in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and
velocity.
We have been we've been critical of them in that regards I think on the podcast before. We talked about how they don't have guys who throw hard, and that's the way the game's going, and that's an issue. Because as we said, they don't really draft the guys like some teams do who just throw really hard and don't have secondaries, and maybe you can figure it out for the most part. That's just not the type of profile guy they seem to go after. And, you see it like even down in Instructs, like the Orioles were running out, like they brought out a guy and like their last pitcher was like a 10th round pick or 11th round pick, was 95, 97. He was also like 290 pounds. It was maybe my new favorite prospect in all of baseball. But, he just was like a cheap money guy who threw really hard, and you see what happens. And they haven't really drafted those type of guys, but they've seemed like they've been actually, since maybe it's the Dombrowski effect or I don't know, but recently, actually no, because all these guys were acquired before him. But there are some guys like, as we said, Kopech, though if starting doesn't work out. We mentioned Diaz and Batista earlier. Luis Isla. Yeah, I was going to do Isla first because I think there's a chance he's up in the big leagues next year. Actually, I think it's a very good chance he's up in the big leagues next year. Me.
He's going to start the year in Pawtucket.
I think he's their future left-handed reliever because if his stuff plays like it did this year, especially at the end of the year, I mean, you're looking at a lefty from a low 3/4 arm slot who's up to 97 with like two secondaries that are about average-ish. But with the arm slot he's coming from, I mean, that's a guy who can get out lefties and righties and miss bats. And so he's someone who's relatively close to the big leagues, farther off on the horizon, the two guys we mentioned. And then Corey Pimentel's the wild card. He looked incredible when we saw him in spring training last year. But during the regular season, he was being used in what we were talking about earlier, those 3-4 inning stints, and you can't really, I don't know. I just have a hard time judging.
He was inconsistent too.
Yeah, but he still missed. I think he missed about an inning. And he's someone who, if his stuff plays like it did when we saw him during spring training, that could be a potential option. And then, as the emailer mentioned, Jake Cozart's another one. Though we've talked about the questions I have about him. I'm still not sold he stays healthy, and his stuff was way down when I saw him in Instructs. We didn't mention earlier, but I guess it's worth mentioning now. He was like 91, 93 when I saw him in Instructs, versus during the regular season he was like 95, 97.
And he easily could be burned out too, though, because he threw way more innings this year than he had in any prior season.
Yeah, but he's someone who, he's not someone I would want to count on as being like the answer in the bullpen, if that makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they do have some of those guys. It's just they don't really have anyone other than Isla, who's kind of on the brink of the big leagues. Yeah. But I guess you have to remember they should have Carson Smith coming back next year. Matt Barnes.
Well, they lose Ziegler, but they replace him with Smith.
Yeah, and Matt Barnes, I think, is kind of, and Joe Kelly now too. Actually,
yeah,
now
that's true.
Are kind of guys that I think they're hoping can assume that mantle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very good question, and I think I'm interested to see if, kind of as Dombrowski has a few more years on the job, is that something they're going to be targeting more in the draft? Because I know his last draft in Detroit, as some Tigers fans friends, and running joke is, if you're a hard throwing righty from Texas, we want you.
Yeah.
Because that's just what they go after, was just hard throwing righties. And, we see it with their bullpen now. I mean, they've got some guys like Joe Jimenez up in the high minors, Bruce Rondone's up there, like just hard throwing righties. That's all they want. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, great questions for everybody. Thanks again. It's podcast@soxprospects.com. Send us in your emails. I'm going to wrap this up. Ian, thanks for hopping on. Any last thoughts for the people before we send them home?
No. Follow all of us on Twitter and read
Tell
our
them where you're at.
At Ian Kundle. The main account is at Sox Prospects.
And I'm at SP Chris Hatfield.
Follow the YouTube page. We'll put up. There actually will be more video going up. We've kind of held some in reserve to put up during the off season. So if Andrew Benintendi slow motion videos and Mauricio Dubon hitting and stuff like that is intriguing, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. I think we just cracked the 400 subscriber mark for a channel that's not very active, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, we're going to ramp that up a lot.
But I think
it's going on there.
We'll kind of tease something. But I think how you can take in the scouting info between the video and the articles and everything will be greatly improved in the coming months. So
definitely, that'll help.
Keep on the lookout for that, and it'll give you a much better idea. And also, we're going to be updating a ton of scouting reports. It's going to be a slow process, but we'll try to keep you guys informed on Twitter of what pages are getting improved. And it's going to be a slow process because we got a lot to do, but hopefully we can get that done.
Beautiful. All right. Well, for Ian, I'm Chris. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back at you with our season wrap up in terms of our season end rankings. I think is probably going to be the next episode. So keep an eye out. We'll announce on Twitter when that's going up too. And if you subscribe, you'll know when it hits your download. All right. So for Ian, I'm Chris. Thanks again, everybody. We'll be back at you soon. Hey, for tonight, go Red Sox.